to the interview. For those of you who've been following the interview when I started this program, you might have seen me interview a lady called Ruthie Kingdom from Seedlings for Christ charity organization. She runs a lower basic school. Well, today I have with me an English lady who is a consultant and at the moment doing some consultancy for the Seedlings for Christ Lower Basic School. Her name is Louise Ewington. Louise, welcome to the interview.
Thank you, Malik, for having me.
Very good. You say you do consultancy.
That's right.
For charity organizations, am I right to say that?
That's right. Yes, I was a lawyer for 10 years or so, but I did a lot of corporate social responsibility work for the firm that I was working for. And I decided that actually I preferred to work in the charity sector, so I left law about 3 years ago now and moved into the charity sector full-time. I've since then done a number of different contracts with different charities, helping them to develop good governance practices, infrastructure in relation to financial planning and consultancy work in that regard.
And most of this, was this more in England or elsewhere?
So far, mostly I've been based in England, although the charities which I've worked for have sometimes had an international capacity. So, for example, one charity that I worked for 2 years was helping to work with the Anglican Church in Papua New Guinea, doing international development work out in Papua New Guinea there, which incidentally is where I grew up. So it was a lovely way for me to give back to a country that it has a really fond place in my heart.
Well, we'll look at that. Tell me, Papua New Guinea,
yes.
Somewhere I'd like to go. It's an island, of course.
It is. It's the largest island in the Pacific, actually.
Of course, yes.
I actually grew up on a much smaller island just off the coast of the mainland called Bougainville, which itself had some difficulties in the late 80s when it was trying to gain independence from Papua New Guinea. Unfortunately, there was a civil war which erupted and most of the island was evacuated, certainly of expatriates, but a lot of the local people were disenfranchised as well.
In the civil war?
No, we fortunately left just before then. Yeah, but you know, Papua New Guinea and Bougainville Island are now sort of working on their relationships, their peace building together. The island is currently an autonomous political region, but they are working very hard to rebuild the infrastructure on the island, maintain some security, but also to really raise the standard of education and try to put in place structures which will support those Bougainvillian children who have lost out on such a long time of support and welfare within the educational environment.
You mentioned the Anglican Church.
That's right.
Now, what exactly have you been doing? What was the church doing?
Well, the church in Papua New Guinea is an autonomous province. It became autonomous in 1977, shortly after independence. So really the work which the charity does is simply to support the Anglican Church in building the relationships that it has and doing the international development work that it does. It crosses a large range of areas. You know, the church is a very young church, and so it still requires help and assistance from overseas, but the decision-making and the custody of that decision-making rests firmly in the hands of the autonomous local people. So the work that they do covers all sorts of different areas, from running schools, as with Seedlings here in the Gambia, to running hospitals, medical centres. It does a huge amount of HIV/AIDS work, particularly in Port Moresby, through its social care arm called Anglicare. On top of that, there's a lot of empowerment of women doing being done at the moment, and particularly looking at domestic violence and sexual violence within communities. It's a long and a very strong challenge to really try to create a normative set of rights-based values within structures and societies, where actually each village has a different cultural background, has a different set of practices and traditions, and so trying to create a unified human rights front is very difficult and very challenging, particularly when every village has a different language. In a population of only 6.2 million people, there are over 850 different indigenous languages, and that's a big challenge for the government as well as the NGOs and the churches who work out there.
I know the English people, were very adventurous in their carving what used to be the British dominions, in other words, colonies along the state. How were the native people able to convert or accept Christianity? How religious are they?
They are very religious in Papua New Guinea. 96% of the population is a member of a Christian church. Constitutionally, the country is a Christian country, but there are other religions which are welcome to freely practice as well. So the church is very important within the political and the community structure of all elements of society within Papua New Guinea.
In my introduction, I mentioned that Ruthie Kingdom was my guest on this very program that we are sitting on right now. How did you meet her?
I've not actually met Ruthie.
Oh, you haven't?
No. I'm looking forward to meeting her when I get back.
Oh, she's a wonderful person anyway. Very strong lady, by the way, and tall, huge, and I was afraid. I didn't want to have any palaver with her. She was going to beat me on the program. But anyway, your present consultancy with Seedlings for Christ.
Yes.
It's a lower basic school, by the way.
Yes, that's right.
What are you doing?
What I'm doing at the moment is obviously where you have a foreign organisation which is privately owning a school in the Gambia, it's supremely important that that charity understands and respects and adheres to the laws in the Gambia. Equally, within the UK, the Charities Commission is responsible for governing all charities, whether they are doing work internationally or not, but those which are registered in the UK. And really my work is involving looking at the structures which are currently in place and ensuring that both sides of those laws and those regulations are being adhered to, and where there are areas where there may be weaknesses or things could be improved, then helping both the UK charity and the school to refine their structures and to put in place excellent positions with regards to compliance and governance for those regulatory bodies, but also looking at some financial planning to make sure that it creates a sustainable future for the school, because obviously the last thing that anybody would want was for those children to end up missing out on an education because the charity wasn't able to finance and sustain it going forward. So sustainability is a hugely important area, and that's one of the things that I'm working with. But more than anything, Malik, I'm just having fun, enjoying playing with the children.
I was very impressed because I went to visit the Seedlings Lower Basic School in Manjai Kunda, and what they have in place, I was very impressive. Conducive atmosphere. Children have a lot to gain.
Yes.
And the parents who are around the vicinity of Manjai were very helpful to the project. Now, what did you find as regards to the way you do your consultancy? What have you found out at this Seedlings Lower Basic School?
Well,
compliance or non-compliance?
Absolutely compliance. Certainly there are areas that we can improve upon, and we'll work together on those with reference to the Ministry of Education standards and regulations, and the Ministry, the cluster monitor particularly has been fantastic and very helpful. He has particularly commended the school on the use of policies, so in respect of sexual harassment, in respect of dress code, in respect of conduct for both pupils and for staff, and he's particularly commended Seedlings Lower Basic School on their use of policies, so that everybody has an inclusive part of creating those policies and then can have custody of what they are in order to ensure that everybody behaves in the same way and in a responsible way. So that's one area that we've been looking at, is the policy work. Certainly in terms of just a few ideas about sort of where they could perhaps utilise time more efficiently and things like that we'll look at, but actually we'll have to look again at